said Gashford, smiling and folding up the document again. 'Your friend, I might have guessed. Indeed, I did guess. Was sure to tell you.' 'My friend!' stammered Hugh, with an unsuccessful effort to appear surprised. 'What friend?' 'Tut! Do you suppose I don't know where you have been?' retorted Gashford, rubbing his hands, and beating the back of one on the palm of the other, and looking at him with a cunning eye. 'How dull you think me! Shall I say his name?' 'No,' said Hugh, with a hasty glance towards Dennis. 'You have also heard from him, no doubt,' resumed the secretary, after a moment's pause, 'that the rioters who have been taken, poor fellows, are committed for trial, and that some very active witnesses have had the temerity to appear against them. Among others,' and here he clenched his teeth, as if he would suppress by force some violent words that rose upon his tongue, and spoke very slowly, 'among others, a gentleman who saw the work going on in Warwick Street, a Catholic gentleman, one Haredale.' Hugh would have prevented his uttering the word, but it was out already. Hearing the name, Barnaby turned swiftly round. 'Duty, duty, bold Barnaby!' cried Hugh, assuming his wildest and most rapid manner, and thrusting into his hand his staff and flag, which leant against the wall. 'Mount guard without loss of time, for we are off upon our expedition. Up, Dennis, and get ready. Take care that no one turns the straw upon my bed, brave Barnaby. We know what's underneath it, eh? Now, master, quick! What you have to say, say speedily, for the little captain and a cluster of him are in the fields, and only waiting for us. Sharp's the word, strike's the action. Quick!' Barnaby was not proof against this bustle and dispatch. The look of mingled astonishment and anger which had appeared in his face when he turned towards them, faded from it as the words passed from his memory, like breath from a polished mirror, and grasping the weapon which Hugh forced upon him, he proudly took his station at the door, beyond their hearing. 'You might have spoiled our plans, master,' said Hugh. 'You, too, of all men!' 'Who would have supposed that he would be so quick?' urged Gashford. 'He's as quick sometimes, I don't mean with his hands, for that you know, but with his head, as you or any man,' said Hugh. 'Dennis, it's time we were going. They're waiting for us. I came to tell you. Reach me my stick and belt. Here, lend a hand, master. Fling this over my shoulder and buckle it behind, will you?' 'Brisk as ever,' said the secretary, adjusting it for him as he desired. 'A man need to be brisk to day. There's brisk work afoot.' 'There is there?' said Gashford. He said it with such a provoking assumption of ignorance, that Hugh, looking over his shoulder and angrily down upon him, replied, 'Is there? You know there is. Who knows better than you, master, that the first great step to be taken is to make examples of these witnesses, and frighten all men from appearing against us, or any of our body, any more?' 'There's one we know of,' returned Gashford, with an expressive smile, 'who is at least as well informed upon that subject as you or I.' 'If we mean the same gentleman as I suppose we do,' Hugh rejoined softly, 'I tell you this. He's as good and quick information about everything as,' here he paused and looked round, as if to make sure that the person in question was not within hearing, 'as old Nick himself. Have you done that, master? How slow you are!' 'It's quite fast now,' said Gashford, rising. 'I say, you didn't find that your friend disapproved of today's little expedition? It is fortunate it jumps so well with the witness policy, for, once planned, it must have been carried out. And now you are going, eh?' 'Now we are going, master,' Hugh replied. 'Any parting words?' 'Oh,
Oh dear no, said Gashford sweetly. None.
You're sure? cried Hugh, nudging the grinning Dennis.
Quite sure, eh, Muster Gashford?
chuckled the hangman. Gashford paused a moment, struggling with his caution and his malice, then putting himself between the two men, and laying a hand upon the arm of each, said in a cramped whisper,
Do not, my good friends, I'm sure you will not, forget our talk one night in your house, Dennis, about this person. No mercy, no quarter, no two beams of his house to be left standing where the builder placed them. Fire, the saying goes, is a good servant but a bad master. Makes it his master. He deserves no better. But I am sure you will be firm. I am sure you will be very resolute. I am sure you will remember that he thirsts for your lives, and those of all your brave companions. If you ever acted like staunch fellows, you will do so today. Won't you, Dennis? Won't you, Hugh?
The two looked at him, and at each other, then bursting into a roar of laughter, brandished their staves above their heads, shook hands, and hurried out. When they had been gone a little time, Gashford followed. They were yet in sight, and hastening to that part of the adjacent fields in which their fellows had already mustered, Hugh was looking back and flourishing his hat to Barnaby, who, delighted with his trust, replied in the same way, and then resumed his pacing up and down before the stable door, where his feet had worn a path already. And when Gashford himself was far distant, and looked back for the last time, he was still walking to and fro, with the same measured tread, the most devoted and the blithest champion that ever maintained a post, and felt his heart lifted up with a brave sense of duty, and determination to defend it to the last. Smiling at the simplicity of the poor idiot, Gashford betook himself to Welbeck Street by a different path from that which he knew the rioters would take, and sitting down behind a curtain in one of the upper windows of Lord George Gordon's house, waited impatiently for their coming. They were so long, that although he knew it had been settled they should come that way, he had a misgiving they must have changed their plans and taken some other route. But at length the roar of voices was heard in the neighbouring fields, and soon afterwards they came thronging past in a great body. However, they were not all, nor nearly all, in one body, but were, as he soon found, divided into 4 parties, each of which stopped before the house to give 3 cheers, and then went on, the leaders crying out in what direction they were going, and calling on the spectators to join them. The first detachment, carrying by way of banners some relics of the havoc they had made in Moorfields, proclaimed that they were on their way to Chelsea, whence they would return in the same order to make of the spoil they bore a great bonfire near at hand. The second gave out that they were bound for Wapping, to destroy a chapel. The third that their place of destination was East Smithfield, and their object the same. All this was done in broad, bright summer day. Gay carriages and chairs stopped to let them pass, or turned back to avoid them. People on foot stood aside in doorways, or perhaps knocked and begged permission to stand at a window or in the hall until the rioters had passed. But nobody interfered with them, and when they had gone by, everything went on as usual. There still remained the 4th body, and for that the secretary looked with the most intense eagerness. At last it came up. It was numerous, and composed of picked men, for as he gazed down among them, he recognized many upturned faces which he knew well, those of Simon Tappertit, Hugh, and Dennis in the front, of course. They halted and cheered as the others had done, but when they moved again, they did not, like them, proclaim what design they had. Hugh merely raised his hat upon the bludgeon he carried, and glancing at a spectator on the opposite side of the way, was gone. Gashford followed the direction of his glance instinctively, and saw, standing on the pavement, and wearing the blue cockade, Sir John Chester. He held his hat an inch or two above his head to propitiate the mob, and, resting gracefully on his cane, smiling pleasantly, and displaying his dress and person to the very best advantage,